Hello and welcome to Cheetah Coding. So this is my Mobx tutorial, and I'm assuming that you already know about Redux already, but this is a more lightweight and easier to set up tool for state management in your React and React Native apps. This is a very basic app that uses the normal setState approach, or in this case, the useState hook. So this is how you would normally set your state in an app. So in the app.js, I have a React navigation layout here. I'm adding some themes here, and I created the home screen and the list screen here. Okay, and in the home screen, I created a lot of style components. If you want to know more about style components, I did a separate video on that, but I put a lot of work into this before the video to kind of get this UI the way that it is now. Okay, so back in the home screen, the Cheetah inputs will set the name and set the power with the useState hooks. So we have name and power. And then when I press the add button, it'll add that name and power to the list here. So it'll take the current list, it'll unpack it, and then it'll add the name and power with the ID math.random here. And this will be used for the key in the list. And then when I press the view list button, I pass that superhero list from the useState to the list screen. Okay, so I can put some random stuff in here now. Add view list, and now you can see the list here with name and power. So if we go to the list screen, I have a different useState here. So I'm taking the list from the route params in the useEffect hook. So the useEffect hook is kind of like the component did mount for class components. And then I'm setting it here when the screen first loads to the superhero list. And then I have my flat list here. I'm using the ID as a key. The data is the superhero list. And then when I want to delete a hero, I do on long press. So the on long press is for the pressable component. So it handles on press and long press here. So on long press, I call delete hero with the item.id. And then I remove that hero with that ID here. Okay, so I'm assuming that this all makes sense to you. If you're trying to learn Mobx, then you already have some React experience. So if I long press here, this is gone, this is gone. But when I go back here and go to view list, it's still here because the state in the home screen is different than the state in the list screen. Okay, so you can see why this would be a problem in bigger apps. In a bigger app, you would want to have your state stored in a central place. So if you go to the docs here, first you would want to install Mobx here. So you do npm install Mobx or yarn here. And then you also want to install Mobx React. Mobx React lets you add observers to your React UI. So you can listen for that observable data. Okay, I won't go into too much of this now. You can read the docs here. It's very good to know this stuff. For Mobx React, we're just going to focus on the observer component here. So we're going to do the functional and the class components. And for the Mobx package, we're going to focus on the Mobx core stuff here. Back to the app. The first thing I want to do is I want to create our store for our state. So I'm going to create a new folder here called store. And then I'm going to create a new file and just call it superheroes.js. Class superheroes. And then I'm going to create an array to store our superhero list. So like our home screen has here, I'm going to create this empty array here. So superheroes, heroes. And then I will create our function to add and delete our superheroes. So add hero. And I'm going to copy a lot of this from the home screen. So let's copy this part. And I'm going to pass in the hero here. And then we have to change how we're setting the hero list. So for now, we'll comment this out. And then I will say this dot superheroes. We don't want to mutate the state directly. We always want to set the superhero list to something that represents the new state. So this dot superheroes equals, and then I'm going to have an array here. Okay, so similar to what we have here. But instead of the dot 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 list spread operator with the this dot superheroes, so we'll unpack the superhero list here, and then we'll pass in the new hero. I spelled that wrong here, so hero. And actually, I want to spread this out too. So I'm going to pass in the name and the power only, so I can set the ID here. So this hero will represent the name and power. So down here, I'm going to say dot 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 hero, and then I will add the ID to that hero. So now I will just copy this into here. And this should be in brackets because this is our object, okay? So I hope this makes sense. So we're taking our superhero list. We are setting the new state, which is an array that is the current superhero list plus the new hero with the new field ID added to that hero. Okay, down here I want to have delete hero. So delete hero. And then I want to delete the hero by the ID. Okay, so we can copy that from the home screen too, or from the list screen, I mean. So here, let's paste this in here, but now we are doing this differently too. So let's get rid of this line, and then I'm going to comment this out, and I will have this dot superheroes equals, so I will just copy this part here, but instead of superhero list, it'll be this dot superheroes. Okay? So I like to keep things pretty simple, so I kind of like how this looks. Okay, and while we're here, I want to add one getter for the count. So down here, I want to say get. So this is how you do a getter in React, count. And then I'm just going to return this dot superheroes dot length. Okay, so this represents some state in your app. And now I want to export that too. So I'm going to export default, and I'm going to call this export superhero store. Okay, and then I'm going to create a new instance of that. So I'm going to say superheroes. Okay, so this is how you would normally create a store in your app. So this is actually pretty close to what we want to have in our final version of the app, but the only thing about this is that it's not reactive. So I will show you what I mean by that soon. First, let's go to the home screen. Okay, so up here, I'm going to take out the useState. I'm going to keep this in here for now because this represents the local state. I will never be using the setPower and setName outside of this class, so that's okay for this video. So down here, I'm not going to pass the superhero list to the list now, so we can get rid of this. And for the add hero, that's different now because we want to use our store now. So let's say superhero. I forgot to save that, so let's save. And actually, while I'm here, let's make this a constant instead of a default. Let's go back and do superhero store. Okay, so superhero store. Now we can say dot add hero, and now I want to pass in the hero parameter. So that's going to be our hero object, because in the add hero here, we're unpacking it and adding the ID to it. So this is going to be the actual object. So that's going to be the name and the power here. So we can say object, name, power. Okay, and I think that's all we need to do for the home screen. So let's go to the list screen now. For this, I can delete all this here, which is nice. So let's get rid of this and the useState. So we can get rid of the route here and get rid of all this. So now we can use our store here too. So we can say superhero store dot superheroes. Heroes. Make sure I spelled that right. Superheroes. Okay. And down here, instead of delete hero, I want to say superhero store dot delete hero. Okay, I think that's okay. Let's save. Class a function. Okay, I forgot to add the new here, so this has to be new. There we go. So now we have an actual store here without using Mobx, but it's not reactive. So if I add in a new name here and press add, you can see that it's not added here. But if I go to view list, I can see it here. But if I try to delete that, so in the list screen, I'm saying delete hero, you can see it's still there, right? But if I go back to it, it's gone. So when I long pressed it, it did delete it, but since the store is not reactive, I have to actually reload the screen to see that the hero has been deleted. So that's not really what you want in your app, right? To test another thing with the add hero, let's copy and paste the list here to the home screen. So let's add it below the row container here. And let's add in these imports, cheetah list text, list separator, and flat list. And save and reload. So now if I add a hero, I should be able to see it in the list, right? So add. But because it's not reactive, it won't show up right away. But if I start typing again in one of the inputs, you will see it. See? And that is because I have the set name set power here. So this will re-render the current component whenever the on-change text happens. If I didn't have these here, then you would never see that in the list here until you reload the home screen. So I hope that makes sense about why this is not reactive. So if I type in more stuff here and then press add, and I can type in more, see, and I can see it there. But then when I press add, it's not there. Type again, now it's there. So the only reason why we're seeing that show up here is because of the useState hooks. Okay, so how do we make this reactive? So if I delete here, the second one here, you can see it's not reactive. And if I go back, you can see that it's not reactive here either. But if I type again, you'll see that the second one will be gone. See, it's almost to the point of what we want, but it's not quite there yet. So let's go back to the superhero.js. And now we actually want to implement Mobx. So doing that is actually pretty easy. I'm going to create a new constructor. So there's two different ways to create observables in Mobx. I'm going to show you the way that you have to do it for the newer version. You used to be able to use the annotations. So you used to be able to do like observable here, but now you cannot do that anymore. So I will show you the newer way to do it. So remove this, and you need to use something called make observable from Mobx. So this function allows you to make observable data. So the first thing that you pass in is the target. The target is this class here. So we want to say this. And then the second option here are the actual data that you want to make observable. So for this, we want to make our superhero list observable. So first you define what the actual field is. So the field is superheroes. And then you want to define one of three types for the observable function here. This one is just called observable. Okay, so now I want to add the add hero. So the add hero is something called a action. So there's three different options here. There's observables, there's actions, and there's computed values. So the Mobx is the actual data that will be observable in your store. The action defines a function that updates the store state. So the add hero here is updating the state, and the delete hero is updating the state. Add hero action and delete hero action. Finally, we want to add the count. So the count is a type called computed. So computed just means that this is something that will actually return data that is based on the state in your store. So here we're returning the length of the superheroes. So I hope that makes sense. It is a function that returns a value based on the state of your store. Okay, so observables, actions, and computed. So that's actually all we had to do. And you can create however many stores you want to. This is one store. I could create like 10 different stores here and import them into different places in my app. Okay, so let's save. And now let's restart and see what happens. So let's add something here. add, view list. You can see that things are the same as before, right? Like almost the same. So let's add more, add. You can see here, delete still doesn't delete right away. But the only difference that you can see here is that, yeah, see? So we're getting the same behavior as before, right? So that's because we have one more step to do, and that is to add observers to our UI. So that's where the Mobx React library comes into play. So there's two different ways that I'm going to show you how to add observers. I'm going to show you how to add them with the functional components, and I'm going to show you how to add the observer component itself. So back to the app. First, let's go to the home screen. Oh, and going back to the package.json, you can see that I've added these here too. So these are the two packages here. So back to the home screen. Now I'm going to add the observer. So I'm going to wrap this entire function or this entire class in a observer. So I could say observer from Mobx React here. And then you want to wrap this entire thing in parentheses. So you say parentheses and parentheses. So save. And now we can test this part real quick. So let's reload. We can add something here. And now when you press add, you'll see it right away. So add, boom. And to show you how this all works together, let's reload. And I'm going to delete this part from the app. Then I'll show you that it doesn't work the same. So let's add here and add. And you can see that that's not there. This make observable and the observer higher order component here works together. So if we reload again, go to the view list, or let's add something first. Oops. Add. Now we want the long press delete to delete right away, because now if we long press, nothing happens, but we go back, it's gone. So let's go back to the list screen, and now I want to wrap this in a observer too. So observer, parentheses, parentheses. And now reload. Let's add something here. Let's add one more. And I forgot to add that. Oh, I forgot to save this. Okay, so save. Reload. Let's add some stuff here. And add. Okay, so now on this screen, if I delete and long press, you see it's removed right away. And if I go back, it's gone here too. And I can do the same here too. Gone, gone. Okay, so you can see how easy this is to use. So all I did is I added the make observable function here. And then I wrapped my home component and list screen in the observer component from Mobx React. So the last thing I want to discuss is the observer component. Right now, I wrapped this entire thing in the observer component, which means that this entire component is rebuilt when I add a new hero. So you can see here, let's do console.log, building home. Let's reload. So you can see as I type here, we are rebuilding because of the useState, which is fine. But now when I press add, you can see we're building home every time. So that's not what you want with your reactive state. So let's find a way to not rebuild home every time that we add a new hero. So first, let's get rid of this observer component. And now I want to wrap the flat list in something called an observer. So it'll be a component. So it'll be observer from Mobx React. And let's put this down here. So let's see if we can do this. Let's save. And now you see you get an error here. So if you see this, this is why you get the error. This needs to actually return the component itself. You don't nest the component like this. So you need to put some brackets here. And then you have a function that returns the component. So like this, and then you want to put the bracket here. So this is just a syntax that you need to get used to, but this is very useful because when this superhero list gets updated, only the flat list will get rebuilt. So let's reload. And let's add some stuff here. And now let's press add and see what happens. Add, add, add. So you can see that this building home console printout is not happening because we are only observing this component here. So only this will get rebuilt when the list changes. And same with deleting the hero list too. So you can say delete, delete, and no log here. So you want to try to prevent as many rebuilds in your app as you can. I could do the same for the list screen, but it's not really a big deal because we're just wrapping the flat list in a container. So the rebuild is not really a big deal for this particular screen here. Okay, so this covers the basics of Mobx. You can see how easy it is compared to Redux. Because Mobx doesn't have like a normal structure to it, it's easy to make a messy app with Mobx. So I might do a part 2 because with the Mobx library, there's a lot more stuff here that you can do. But what I showed you covers about 90% of what you do with the library. So yeah, stay tuned for the next video and happy coding. Bye.